What's up guys, it's Broski the Jellyfish, and today's video is gonna be a little different. I decided that I was gonna take a little bit of a break from gaming for today's video, and decided that I was gonna do something new. Something to where you guys can actually get to know me a little bit more and figure out what I like. So today, we are going to be talking about one of my favorite animes of all time. It's called Fairy Tail. Now I have been watching Fairy Tail since its inception. I've been watching Fairy Tail since I think there were only 3 seasons out. It was it started back when I was in middle school, I think. Um, yeah, I've been watching anime for a very long time. And Fairy Tail is one of my favorites. I think it's somewhere in the top 5, if if not top 3. It has taught me a lot, and I'm sure if you guys are fans of Fairy Tail, you already know. Watching the anime felt like I had found my own family in a sense. So I figured today we'd do a little fun kind of a ranking. I am going to rank the arcs of Fairy Tail, from my personal favorites to some of my least favorite arcs of Fairy Tail. Now, I have probably rewatched Fairy Tail at least a dozen times. I've for sure rewatched everything up until Fairy Tail Zero at least 5 times, and I've rewatched a lot of the first like 4 or 5 seasons. I've watched those at least 10 times. Um as far as the newest season goes, I've only seen it once, so um my memory is not the best of what happens in that arc. But without further ado, let's get to the ranking, shall we? So we are going to start with Fairy Tail Zero. We're going to start with Fairy Tail Zero. I know this technically doesn't happen until like way later in the seasons, but it is technically the prequel to how Fairy Tail the Guild itself came to be. I actually really liked this season. It talked a lot about Zeref and the first guild master, Mavis, and kind of just their backstory, how they met, how they became lovers, how they, became wizards of essentially the opposite spectrum, and how Mavis was, this magician of light, while Zeref kind of, he's the magician of darkness, for lack of a better word, and everything he touches dies. So I will say this was probably one of the better seasons. I don't think it's a super fan favorite for me, but I think it is a really it's a solid arc. I'm gonna put that in the solid arc. Okay, next we have the very first arc of Fairy Tail, being the Macau arc, which I'm gonna be so real. I had no idea that it was called the Macau arc. I actually had no idea what this arc was called technically. It's the arc where we, first are introduced to Lucy, where we're first introduced to Fairy Tail. Lucy joins the guild and they go up to the snowy mountains to save Macau because he went on a job up there and he hasn't been back home in a while. So I think it is a very good introduction to Fairy Tail. But when you compare it to a lot of the other arcs, I feel like I don't know. Maybe it's just plain good. I'm gonna put it in just plain good for now. Because, we get to meet everybody. That's where we first get to meet everyone. You can't say that it's not, a good baseline. Okay. After that, we have the next arc, which is the Daybreak arc. This is where, Lucy gets that job about a book. And this also happens to be where she first meets Virgo. And at the end of this arc, she does get Virgo as a celestial spirit. This was a pretty funny arc. Meeting Virgo in her big giant form, because the guy is obsessed with really big fat women, and he loves fat women. And Lucy infiltrates the job as a maid, and she's like getting called ugly by this guy the entire time because she's skinny and, you know, societally, you know, proportionate and perfect. The concept is really good, but it's kind of just okay for me when compared to everything else. So I'm gonna put this in not bad, but not good either. Just kind of plain okay. And then after that arc, we have the Eisenwald arc. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, that the Eisenwald arc is when we first kind of get Urza in the party. And maybe Gray, I think, as well, is when we first get both of them in the party. Because up until now, it has just been Lucy, Natsu, and Happy. I think this is the first time where we kind of see Urza and Gray join the party and everyone work together as a unit. The only thing I can remember from this arc is the battle with the main guy. This guy with the white hair here. Can't remember his name. Terrible at remembering names, by the way. And oh, Urza was in that magic car that she attached it to her wrist, and it like feeds on like magical power to like accelerate and stuff. So I do remember that much. I think again, I'm gonna put this in like it's just good, or actually, I'm gonna put it in just plain good for now. These may be subject to change once we get to the later seasons. But I think for like a starting point, especially just being introduced as to finally having like a whole group, I think it's just good. It's just a good arc to watch, to see how the characters interact with each other in a setting outside of the guild. Okay, after that we have the Leon arc, which is the Deliora Moon Island arc. This one was one of my personal favorites. The concept is kind of funny because there's these people on an island who are like transforming into monsters under the moon. And yeah, the moon is like turning pink, or maybe it was blue or something. I don't remember what it was. But it was because Leon and the rest of his friends were like using some sort of like crystal or something to melt the ice that his and Gray's teacher used, the ice spell, or the iced shell spell that completely encapsulated Deliora, one of Zeref's demons. And Leon had always blamed Gray. What was her name? For Ur's death? I think that was her name. And so he wanted to melt the ice around Deliora to take Deliora down himself to prove that he's always been the stronger wizard between him and Gray. You know, only to realize that Deliora has basically been dead a long time, and that when he did finally melt the ice, you know, it kind of just let out this last kind of like cry of life before, you know, fully dying. And it, you know, and it wasn't until after he kind of melted the ice where Gray kind of revealed to Leon that Ur is the ice. Like, she didn't just, when you use the spell Iced Shell, you don't just give up your life, you forfeit your entire being to become the ice shell that encapsulates whatever you're using it against. Which is funny because for the next, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 seasons, Gray is just constantly threatening to use Ice Shell at any moment. Alright, on to the next one. We have, I believe it's the Phantom Lord arc. This is when we first meet Gajiel and and Juvia. Gajiel and Juvia. They were a part of this Dark Guild, I believe is what they're called. Okay, why are you taking my stuff off? Yeah, that's when we first meet Gajiel and Juvia, and they're a part of the Dark Guild that Lucy's father hires to kind of like destroy Fairy Tail's guild essentially and to kind of coerce them into giving Lucy to them and sending Lucy back home, even though Lucy clearly doesn't want to be home. This this is up here with one of the absolute best. You will never be able to tell me otherwise. This is one of the best arcs because even though Lucy's been there for a short time, it just proves how much of a community the Fairy Tail Guild is, and how much they really care for each other and other members of the guild, and how they really come together and think of each other as family. So you will never be able to tell me that this is not the best of the one of the best of the best. All right, I'm gonna lose it if this keeps taking off my tier lists. I'm gonna lose it. Okay, next we have Leo's arc. I'm gonna be so real. You're gonna hate me for this. This is another one of my favorites. No hesitation. This is best of the absolute best. I had always liked Lucy as a character. This is the season where that locked it in for me. Where it locked in Lucy being my favorite character. And all you Lucy haters out there, you can get off my channel. Because she does not deserve the hate that people give her. Like, it's just... It's so ridiculous the amount of hate that she gets because everyone is like, oh, she's so weak. And it's like, well, yeah, everyone compares her to freaking monsters like Urza and Mira Jane. But did you forget? She's the strongest celestial, like, wizard alive at this current point. In history of celestial wizards. Because not only was she the first sorcerer known to be able to summon more than one celestial spirit, because remember, or not, maybe it's not the first, but it was known that it's very hard for celestial wizards to summon more than one spirit at the same time. It is extremely difficult. So her mana manipulation and her mana reservoirs are off the fucking charts. Not only that, she was able to open every single one of her celestial spirit's gates in this season. Granted, it was only for like, I don't know, 20 or 30 seconds. But the fact that she was even able to do that at all without killing herself is a feat in and of itself. And not only that, she is also the first ever celestial spirit user to use a star dress. She's probably also the first person ever to summon the Celestial Spirit King. I'm sure nobody's ever done that before. It's definitely not talked about, even though it is like the Celestial Spirits know that it's a thing and know that it can be done. It is a very, very last resort kind of thing. And you have to give up your most prized key in order to do it. She had to give up Aquarius to do that. And because of that, she was able to unlock the power of the Star Dress, which no Celestial Spirit user has ever been able to do that. Nobody even knew it was a thing. And in the later manga series, she gets that down pat. She is so good at it and is actually able to really fight with everyone else in the team. So for all you saying that she is weak, y'all are just wrong. Y'all are actually not just wrong, you're stupid. So, any Lucy haters out there can get off my channel. Okay, next, we have the Tower of Heaven arc. This one, definitely a really good one. I'm gonna put it in the solid arc, no hesitation. We learn a lot about Urza in this arc, her past, and with Jalal and a couple of the other characters that return later on in other seasons in what I think was the Mermaid Heel Guild. Or maybe it was a different one. But really, really solid arc. Not much to say about that one. I just really, really liked it. Okay, after that, I believe we have the Battle of Fairy Tail arc. Another best of the best for me. Another best of the best. This is when Loxus finally comes back to the guild and makes an appearance. And he obviously is kind of... his alignments with the guild right now are a little tense and a little convoluted. He wants to be the next guild leader of Fairy Tail. And Makarov hasn't actually, placed anyone as the next head of the Guild of Fairy Tail. Because he is getting old. He realistically should retire soon. And, let someone else be a guild leader. Because he's an old man. He deserves some rest. He needs to rest. But right now, Loxus is so, stuck in his own mindset. And his ego is so freaking inflated. Because, he's so big and so strong that he thinks Fairy Tail is a weak guild. So he makes everyone in the guild kind of essentially fight against each other to figure out who the strongest, members of Fairy Tail are. And they're forced to fight because what is it? Freed, I think his name is. Covers the entire city in runes. So if people are running around trying to, look for Freed and Loxus and what was it? Bacchus and Evergreen. But to try to look for them to stop them, they'd run into these runes where they would have to do what the runes say in order for the rune to disappear, essentially. Yeah, this will absolutely, hands down, be one of the best seasons of Fairy Tail. Because we see lots of moments, especially because Loxus doesn't really like Gajeel and Juvia, and he really hates the fact that Makarov let them into the guild after what they did to the guild last season. Or not last season, 2 seasons ago. To Lucy and stuff. So he really doesn't like them. He doesn't like that Makarov let them into the guild. And we get this really, really cool moment when it comes to Juvia. She gets locked in a rune, I think with Kana. And she refuses to fight Kana because she's trying to make it a point where she's just joined this guild and she's trying to change her ways. And she's not going to fight someone who she's, just made a friend of. And she's not going to do that. So she literally, because Loxus put all these lightning balls in the sky. She literally flies up there because her body is made of water and crashes into it, and then because of how it works, the blowback hit her and knocked her out instead. Ending the rune. So this is one of the best of the best. We have the Arashian Seis arc. I'm gonna be so honest. I do not remember anything about this arc aside from Cobra and Angel. That is it. It was really good to watch, and all the fights in there were really good. And then we get a callback of the staff all the way back from the Eisenwald arc, because the Eisenwald arc is kind of when we're first introduced to the dude in the staff. But I only really enjoyed whenever Cobra and Angel were on the screen, because that was also when because Angel's a celestial wizard as well. That's in when we meet Aries and Pisces, and we have that really good interaction of how the different celestial users use their spirits and how they treat them, because a lot of spirits are tethered to these keys, right? That celestial spirits get, celestial wizards get. And when they get these keys, they can summon the spirit that's inside or tethered to the keys, and they can make contracts with them in order to be able to summon them. As far as I'm aware, when a celestial spirit wizard finds your key, you cannot not make a contract. It's a lot like a slave relationship, in all honesty. And it's really sad, but unfortunately a lot of celestial wizards treat their spirits like slaves, which we see in the Loki arc, because his original owner Karen had owned Loki and Ares, and she treated them really badly. we knew she treated them like slaves, but it was really bad. Like, she would beat them herself just for fun. So we get this moment when Pisces turns into Lucy, and whenever Pisces turns into somebody, they inherently take all of the like powers that they can use, their like magic level, their strength level, and even their memories. You know, they become who they turn into. Um and they see how Lucy loves her spirits so much. She treats them like friends and like family, and you know, never asks them to do anything they don't want to do. You know, she treats them like equals, which is very rare for celestial wizards to do to their spirits. Even her silver spirits, she treats them like friends and family. She doesn't treat them as just toys, you know? So we get that really raw moment, again, from other celestial spirits. Um, and Lucy does end up getting Pisces and Aries after that. So it's just plain good. But you know, like I said, that's the only thing I remember about that arc is Cobra and Angel. That's all I remember. So because of that, it just goes to plain good. After that, we have the Daphne arc. I'm gonna be so honest. When I was looking at the list of arcs in Fairy Tail, I forgot that existed. I don't remember anything about her. I don't remember any of what happened. I don't even remember why they needed to go to her in the first place. It may have had something to do with Wendy. Heck if I know. Actually, that probably was the season where we first met Wendy. But I did not remember anything about that arc, so for that reason, it goes to forgettable. Oh, and then we have the Edolus arc. One of my favorites, the Edolus arc, because I just think it's hilarious to see their alternate selves in a different sort of universe and see how they differ and see how they interact. And this is also when we realize that Lizana had never actually died from the monster attack that her brother and sister thought she died from. It was Edolus Lizana that died, and at the same time that Lizana was going to get hit or something by the monster that Mira Jane, or no, it wasn't just a monster, it was Elfman. It was Elfman. Elfman turned into the monster. He did monster takeover and he couldn't control it. I remember. Because that's the problem with takeover magic that Mira Jane was talking about, which is why she, for the first essentially almost half of the series, actually not even first half of the series, but for the first quarter of the series, I guess now, that she doesn't ever use her takeover magic, and she hasn't used it for quite some time. If or actually, I think she hasn't used it since that night. Actually, Mira Jane used to be pretty rebellious, so when her brother Elfman was first learning full body takeover magic, he couldn't control the beast that he changed into, and he had thrown Lizana into like this rock formation, and everyone thought that he had accidentally killed her after like trampling on her or something. In that same instance, because Lizana couldn't see and Elfman doesn't remember any of what happened because he couldn't control the beast. At that same moment, something happened and she was like transferred to the Edolus world. Which happens to be around the same time where Edolus, Mira Jane, and Elfman had lost Lizana on their end. So they decided to keep Lizana, the new Lizana, you know, our Lizana, and raise her there. Especially because, you know, they didn't even have a way back. To you know, even if they could, they didn't have a way to bring her back to the other world. Because Edolus doesn't have any magic. So yeah, it's really solid arc. Ooh, okay, after that, oh, it's the the Tenro Island arc, Tenrojima Island. Another best of the best. Don't even think I need to say more. This was the S-Class Wizard quest that it essentially turned into the 10-year, I think it was a 10-year time skip. This is where we first meet Xerath. This is where we first meet all of his devotees and the people who, you know, claim to worship Xerath. It was just really, really great. I think the first half of the season, the concept of being able to bring one other person to your S-Class Wizard quest, and part of the quest being you have to fight other S-Class Wizards at some point, and they determine whether you pass or fail. Really, really good season. Yeah, I think Kana was up for S-Class. I think it was Gajiel was up for S-Class as well, and so was Gray, maybe. I can't remember specifically who was up for S-Class, but I do remember that Kana took Lucy as her partner. And I do believe Gajiel and Juvia were teamed up as well for this. And I could be wrong, but I think Gray and Natsu were teamed up. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But yeah, great arc, great soundtrack. And that was when we first get introduced to Fairy Tail's, what is it, like their specific guild spells. The first one we see is like fairy glitter that Kana uses after going to Mavis's grave. Because the only other one we see before that is Makarov's like standard, what is it, fairy law? Or maybe he uses that here too. Where whatever he says is law, and whatever goes against that, people get like annihilated or something. I forget what specifically it was, but there are like 3 or 4 like guild spells, which becomes, you know, a problem later on. There is technically the arc after that. I didn't know it was considered a separate arc. I thought it was all part of the same one. I believe it's called like X97 or something like that. I honestly don't think it should have been considered its own arc, because it was kind of just the events that happened in the 10 years that everybody was stuck on Tenro Island, because that was also at the exact same time that they ran into Acnologia. So they were in like that stasis, you know, where for 10 years. So this particular arc was just kind of like summing up everything that happened to the Fairy Tail Guild in those 10 years. How they've deteriorated as, you know, the land's, you know, strongest guild, and how they're not really strong anymore since everybody that was super strong was on that island and gone for 10 years. You know, how everyone's grown up. You know, some people got married and had a kid, you know, and kind of just how people have been treating the Fairy Tail Guild in general since they have become known as the weakest guild in Fior. So I feel like it's just a part of the Tenro Island arc, in my opinion. I don't think it should be classified as its own arc. After that we have the, what was it, the Starry Key arc. Oh, Lucy talks, it's her doll. She's got like this, because after she comes back in the previous, you know, quote-unquote arc, she finds out that her dad is dead. And, that he's like left, this key for her, or this part of a key, and she has to find the rest of the parts to create this key that unlocks something or whatever. And this is where, I think the doll's name is like Michelle or something. She comes to life, and she kind of like requires, she's the one that brings the key to Lucy that starts this whole quest to begin with. And it ends with some sort of giant door opening, if I remember correctly, with some sort of like something timey-wimey happened with the door like opened to the past or something, and a couple of like dragons got through or something, I remember vaguely. And then Ultir, which we meet earlier, uses this forbidden spell that manipulates time or whatever to turn back time. and realizes that her life, the rest of her life, has only amounted to the time rewinding to 1 minute. That 1 minute saved so many lives. So just a solid arc. Really, like, it was just great for all the characters and especially Lucy and her character growth. So this will always be like a really good solid arc for me. Fairy Magic Games, the Grand Magic Games, another best of the absolute best. I don't even think I have to say anything. Urza slaying the 100 wizards. Lucy, they did Lucy so bad this season. She got her shit absolutely fucking wrecked. But it was so good. All of the villains that were in there from the Dark Guild, and it was what, Makarov versus who was it again? I can't remember who it was, but that was related to Makarov or something. I think it was his son, Loxus's dad. He had made a dark guild called Raventail, specifically for the fact of bringing down Fairy Tail and stealing their sacred spells or whatever. But the entire thing, oh, it was just so good. And then we run into God, what's the guild name that has like Rogue, and I think his name is Sting. The what, second generation Dragon Slayers, second or third generation Dragon Slayers. I can't remember specifically. But we meet them, we meet their whole guild, and we meet all the other guilds. You know, we get some reoccurring characters that we've seen way back, you know, in like the early seasons. This is like mid game right here. So this, oh, and the soundtrack is amazing. You know, this was the moment of like Fairy Tail Redemption, kind of like putting their name back on top where they, you know, should have been had it not been for the Tenro incident for 10 years. So this will be another best of the best for me. After that, we have the Eclipse arc, where all of the celestial spirits kind of turn into like their alter, like, negative egos. I forget exactly what happened to make them turn kind of evil and all of the spirits to go against their celestial wizards. I think it had something to do with the Celestial Spirit King. And it was, for me, it was like fine. Actually, it was okay. Like, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good for me. I thought some of the fights were entertaining, but honestly, compared to some of the arcs, I just don't find it as memorable as some of them. Maybe that's just because I didn't want to remember. Maybe that's just because I didn't want to remember the strain that it put on my heart for Lucy and the other celestial spirits. After that, we have the first of the newer seasons where the art style really starts to change. The, like, Fire Island, or Fire, the Sun Village arc. The Sun Village arc. This is when we get, they have some quest, that some eternal flame has gone out, and, they're supposed to put this eternal flame back. And we also, get Flare comes back. We first see her in the Grand Magic Games, and she was the one, she's one of the people that gave Lucy a really bad, beating in, the Grand Magic Games. So she makes a comeback here in this season, and she actually really takes a liking to Lucy, and Lucy and Flare kind of become friends throughout this season. But I think this one was just pretty good overall. I remember, like, something happened to where, like, half of the members got, like, turned into their, like, child forms, so they had to fight as kids. So that was pretty hilarious seeing that. Yeah, overall, I think it was pretty good. I don't remember specifically too much about the actual, like, enemies that they had to fight. But yeah, I think it was just plain good. Just generally good art. Oh, and then we have, what was it called? What is it called? The, Tartarus, the Tartarus arc. Tados. This one was insane, actually. This one was freaking insane, because this is when we're first introduced to Silver, I think is his name, which is Gray's father, who is, what is he, an ice demon slayer? And all of the enemies in this arc specifically, I felt like we had seen strong enemies before, but none of them were quite like this. I think I would put these guys almost on the same level as Acnologia when we first met Acnologia, because Tenor Island was kind of that sort of like feeling as well, where like we had seen powerful enemies, but you had never seen an enemy like Acnologia. And this was also that was also on Tenor Island the first instance where we saw that some dragons were so strong that they could actually shapeshift into humans and pose as humans in society. So and yeah, I would put these guys on the same level as or like just under, you know, Acnologia. But they're I think one of the strongest like sets of villains in the entire series. I would go that far to say that. So all of the fights here are incredibly amazing. And I believe this was also the season where Lucy had to give up Aquarius in order to summon the Celestial Spirit King in order to save everybody, because everyone had kind of depleted their magic power. Everyone was kind of like trapped, or nobody was coming. It was just her, and she was the only person that had any hope of saving the guild at that point. Which is another reason you will never ever catch me saying that Lucy is weak. Okay? She gave up her most beloved spirit and broke that damn key to summon the Celestial Spirit King. And he did his thing. Okay. Yeah, and that's when she first gets the power of the Star Dress as well. Okay, so after the Tartarus arc, we have the Avatar arc. I'm gonna be so real. I don't remember anything about that. Oh, that's right. After Tartarus, Makarov disbands the guild. He disbands Fairy Tail, and everyone kind of goes their separate ways. This is the season, or I believe Tartarus ended with Natsu leaving and going on some like couple-year-long journey or something without even telling Lucy that he was leaving. The entire build had disbanded, and Lucy was the only person that was trying to keep in touch with her previous members of Fairy Tail. When we're first introduced to the season, I do remember Natsu kind of comes back, you know, acting like nothing had happened, no time had gone by. You know, he came back thinking everything was all right. But everything like that like really hurt Lucy. And I will forever feel like really sad for Lucy about what happened, specifically in like the beginning of this season and the end of last season, because she has no family. Her dad is dead, and her and her dad were in the middle of rekindling their relationship when, you know, Tenor Island happened. The 10 years passed, and he died. So she literally has no family. Fairy Tail was her only family. And not only that, but Natsu was the very first friend that she had ever had. And for him to just leave her without even telling her where he was going, and everybody else going their separate ways, you know, because Makarov wasn't giving anyone the choice, he was disbanding Fairy Tail whether they liked it or not. She had lost her entire sense of family. And she had spent the last, what was it, like I think it was like 2 or 3 years, becoming a journalist for Wizard Weekly and keeping tabs on everybody. She was like sending letters to people, trying to contact people just to try and like stay in touch with them, or at the very least to know their whereabouts, to make sure that all her friends, that her family is okay. And it's just crazy because it almost seemed like she was the only one who really cared about keeping tabs on everybody. But yeah, it seemed like she, from the perspective that we saw, it seemed like she was the only one that really cared to keep tabs on everybody. Which to me is really depressing because it almost felt like everyone was too okay with kind of going and doing their own thing and not bothering to keep up with anybody or talk with anybody. Even though they did eventually all come back to rebuild Fairy Tail and remake the guild, even though they did all come back, it just felt really bad because on one hand, it maybe like needed to be done in order for like character development to happen. But like Lucy was just so alone. She literally had nobody. Gray and Juvia were out doing some, infiltration, so they weren't talking to anybody because they were posing as the bad guys. Urza was working on the Magic Council, and Gajiel was working as some sort of, undercover, PI sort of dude. So they purposefully could not really contact each other. Because of what was happening. I forget specifically what was happening, but they couldn't contact each other. And they couldn't contact any of their old friends. So, like, not only did Lucy lose her connection to Natsu because he just left without telling her anything and thought it would be fine, she couldn't talk to Urza because Urza's been so busy with the Magic Council. Definitely can't talk to Gray because Gray's undercover as a bad dude. So she literally can't have anything to do with Gray, even if she wanted someone to talk to. And Gray and Lucy's relationship felt really close, like brother and sister. In the earlier seasons, I might have said different because Gray was a lot more empathetic to Lucy in the earlier seasons before Juvia came into the picture. But once Juvia came into the picture, I would say their relationship developed into that of siblings. So she lost everybody. Yeah, that was like all established within like the first couple episodes of this season. I don't even remember what happened, so kind of just okay. Yeah, I'll just give it a, just okay. After that, we have, what was it specifically called? The Alvarez arc. Once again, this is another situation where I pretty much only remember that they were like devotees of Zeref. This was one of the seasons where I think I've only watched it 2 times. This wasn't one of the ones that I had rewatched quite a few times. I think I'd only rewatched it a couple, like 2, maybe 3 times. And that was like a while ago. But I do remember this is where we were introduced to, oh gosh, I can't remember her name, but the green-haired girl. She can like shrink and make people grow, and then we have the what was it, the God Slayer? The Light God Slayer or something. And Zeref himself. This may have been the season where they reveal that Natsu is from the book of END or something like that. Which is what Zeref has been working for, and this may have been also the season where it was revealed that Natsu is Zeref's younger brother, and Zeref has been like doing everything to try and, I can't remember if it was like revive his brother or do something, but it is revealed that Natsu is technically a demon from the book of Zeref, he is END. That's what it was. Ethereal Natsu Dragmail. That's what it stands for. Or Ethereus. Something like that. So I think overall this, like, I would probably put it in the solid arc, even though I haven't watched it as many times. After that, we had a very, very long pause of Fairy Tail media, and I believe it was because everything had been caught up to the manga at that point, so there was really nothing to animate at that point. And then just, what was it, 2 years ago, we finally got a new season of Fairy Tail, the Water Dragon arc. Um, the art style changed heavily for this one. I wasn't too much of a fan of the art style in the beginning. And it kind of felt like we had come back to the earlier seasons of Fairy Tail in a way. We had got, the crew back in some of their OG outfits. When I had first watched it, because I had watched it originally as it was releasing, it didn't hit the same sense of nostalgia when I first watched it. Because I had watched everything in dub up until the Grand Magic Games. Because what I would do, because I think that all happened when I was in high school. So I was pretty busy with other things in high school, so I would let the episodes come out, and I would watch the dubbed episodes as they came out instead, because I didn't really have time to commit to watching the sub. It wasn't until after Grand Magic Games where I had a lot of more time on my hands and continued watching it like weekly and watching the sub first because I just wanted more of it. So I did watch this as it was first releasing in the sub, and for some reason I couldn't pinpoint it. I didn't really feel the same about this season. There were like costume changes every like five minutes. Maybe it was 3 minutes. There were costume changes every 3 minutes. We were like going through the new outfits for the whole crew, mainly Lucy, every 3 minutes. And like, I'm sure it was supposed to signify like time change as they're traveling on their journey to this other country for this quest. Because what is this? This is the start of the 100-year quest, I think. But I didn't really like that too much. I had found that we were doing a lot of like the old quirky, like what's the like cliche like fan service stuff, a lot more than usual than was seen in a lot of more recent seasons. And I didn't like that too much either. But it wasn't until I had rewatched it again in dub where I had felt a little bit more at home. Because we had a lot of the original voice actors come back. I believe the only voice actor that changed that I know of was Levy. Levy was not the same voice actor as the dub in the rest of the series. And I know, I think it was either in the last couple episodes, Gajil's voice actor changed as well. I can't remember specifically what happened, but he felt like he wasn't getting paid enough or something by Crunchyroll, or something happened with Crunchyroll, and he decided to opt out of doing Gajil's voice. So I think in the last couple episodes, Gajil's voice actor changes. But I can't remember specifically. I don't know. It just didn't hit the same for me. So I'm hoping that once we get another season, because I know they're giving it some time for the anime or for the manga to finish up, which I have not read any of. So I'm not going into future manga arcs. I'm not rating those. I'm just rating everything that's been animated. But yeah, I'm hoping that for later seasons, I don't know if we'll continue to get the same art style or if maybe we'll get a different art style that is kind of more reminiscent of some of the other seasons. I don't know. I just didn't like the last season as much as I liked a lot of the others, and it's really sad. This was like my found family. But yeah, don't kill me for my tier list. This is just my personal opinion. And this comes from a very, very loving place in my heart. I have nothing but love for this series. I have nothing but love for Hiramashima. I love this series more than anything. So thank you all for watching, and thank you so much for enjoying me figure out how to rank the Fairy Tail arcs. If you guys want to see more rankings in the future for different animes or just anything else, go ahead and let me know down in the comments. And don't forget to join my Discord. That way you guys can influence what I do in future videos. I actually had really fun doing this, so I might be doing a couple of fun other things in future videos besides just games. So if you guys want to see more of that too, let me know as well. Other than that, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye, my jellies!